There comes a point in your life where you are just sat alone in a room and you are confronted with your thoughts. You think to yourself, how did I end up here? What was the road I walked across that led me to this moment? A moment which I'm now typing on a computer, trying to touch my deepest emotions and figuring out myself a little more. Remembering all of those days that came before, from my childhood to my teen years to my young adult years to now. How I came to develop this passion inside me, why I have this need to talk about my most personal things, and how I let my fingers type on this keyboard to express myself in the best way possible, or at least in the best way that I can. And it baffles me to realize that if not for anime, I would not be the person who I am today. I truly wouldn't, because we're not taught this in our lives. We are taught that entertainment has no value. We are taught that art should be seen as just a hobby. But what people don't realize is that art changes everything. It's not to be taken lightly. It's not to be dismissed. Because the power to create something and connect with other people is how we gain some understanding of who we are. We might be people who for one reason or another can't cry until we read a book or listen to a song or watch a movie that perfectly encapsulates everything we went through, and we have no choice but to cry. Because the people who create art don't do it because they want to, they do it because they need to express something really deep and let us know what they are feeling. It can be considered by the majority to be some of the finest works of art ever made. Or sometimes there is that one show, one manga, that at first seems like such a superficial premise, presenting us with so many questionable scenes, and it's almost hard to watch. But then you get hooked, you get invested for some weird reason, because there is beauty in what you're experiencing. There is something quite personal there, and suddenly you're struck with an image that you don't really understand why it resonates with you. An image that has been stuck on my mind for months on end. One that isn't there by chance and is able to encompass everything you're going through in that one instant. That's right, even something like this made me think deeply about myself. The anime and manga that is Rent-A-Girlfriend. Ever remember when you were a kid, watching so many movies about teenagers slowly falling in love? How you would get so easily invested because you wanted something like that in your life. And then with time, as you grew older, you looked back and started to realize that those movies had so many issues, always showing the same tropes. That the guy had to do something spectacular to win over the girl, or the girl had to be the most beautiful girl at school to be the main character. Remember those films? Well, don't worry, Rent-A-Girlfriend starts off way worse. Because a truly great idea is to have a guy find a website where you can rent a girl to pretend to be your date for a few hours, and then be forced to pretend they are dating to keep their grandmothers happy, and then unexpectedly have them be neighbors, and have that guy stalk her at one point. Yeah, that all seems reasonable. No issues whatsoever. But the truth is, despite how crazy this anime and manga starts off as, it actually does become better. Because even though it's so purposefully dramatic and there are so many fundamental issues I have with it, I'm still able to connect a lot with these characters. For instance, I don't think the premise is great, because it seems like only the girls can be rented for dates. It would have been more interesting to also have the option to rent a boyfriend and juxtapose those two sides. Or Chizuru not condemning almost at all the fact that Kazuya stalked her for one entire day. In fact, it turned into a sweet interaction between them, which in my eyes doesn't redeem in any way what Kazuya did. It would have been interesting if he was challenged on it and actually learned from it, which would be totally in line with his character since he is someone who wants to grow from the very beginning. But unfortunately, it's just brushed aside. However, there are times where we viewers watch or read media that we know have issues like these, and we find ourselves still glued to the screen, still glued to the page. Not because of these issues, but in spite of them, and can start off as me convincing myself I've got nothing to watch, so why not? I know it's not great, but I kind of am enjoying it. But in reality, what really happens is that I genuinely start to like it, because it's giving me something I needed, because it does evolve into something more, because it has more nuance than I initially thought it did. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it is as superficial as it always was. But there's so much here that puts a smile on my face and even reminds me of how powerful a manga can really be. After finishing the first season of the anime, I was interested enough in what happened next. And since I wasn't really watching or reading anything at the time, I decided to pick up the manga. I didn't want to wait for the second season, and so for the next few months, I would have something to look forward to every day. Only problem was, I was caught up in 2 days. I literally couldn't stop reading, going through each page as quickly as possible, wanting to know the events that transpired in every single frame, laughing at all the crazy drama, but also completely invested in the story and characters, and found myself really loving this in ways I never thought I would. Precisely because I do believe the manga turned into something that became a lot more than what it initially started as, with the story focusing more and more on just Kazuya and Chizuru, seeing them interact, seeing them closing the gap between each other, and seeing them be so incredibly flawed. Yes, not just Kazuya, but Chizuru too, because whereas the former starts off lacking maturity, respect and self-confidence, the latter constantly pretends that everything is alright, and shields herself from everyone else, which is something I genuinely like about her character. She is someone who shows to be independent, mature, optimistic, thoughtful, selfless, and does whatever it takes to pursue her dreams. The dreams of being an actress. She has all of these character traits that I think make her character not only extremely likable, but also someone that you respect and eventually care for. However, her flaws are also very transparent. She has lots of difficulty in opening up about herself, about what she is going through, about what she really needs, forcing herself to be alone dealing with these issues, and all you want is for her to open up a bit more, show more of who she really is. And the first time I actually felt something I did not expect was during Chizuru's first moment of failure, or rather, the first moment of failure that we are presented with. She then walks home and we see her slowly sitting down against the door, and suddenly we are shown a wide shot of her looking down, almost as if she doesn't want us to see her face. She is still hiding herself from the world, from Kazuya, and from us. Completely distraught because at this point in time, she feels like nothing, like she is worthless. Sitting slightly to the right of the page in the shadows, with the light shining on the left-hand side of the frame, coincidentally pointing to the wall that separates her from Kazuya. And it was here where I stopped for a second. This page resonated so much with me, seeing someone who seems to be so strong in her personality, so uplifting to the people around her, and we just see her fall. It was there and then that I didn't know what to think. I wasn't sure what this represented to me. Was I thinking about someone I knew in my life in that situation? Or was I thinking about myself? Someone who also has desires and dreams and sometimes falls into a hole? Or was it my oldest memory in my life, being sat against the wall like this and wanting to pretend it was all a dream? I can't really answer any of these questions because I don't know myself. But what I know is I instantly connected with what Chizuru was feeling. I know what it's like to do your best and feel like the people around you don't acknowledge it. I know what it's like to pour your heart and soul into something you love and feeling like what you did was still not good enough. Just like she mentions to Kazuya earlier in that day. This is where I started to think that this manga was more than its front cover, more than the fundamental issues I had with it, more than just its stereotypes. It actually has heart. It actually makes you think and feel in ways I never thought of, and thus began a journey of me wanting to see Chizuru open up to Kazuya more and more, but also seeing Kazuya becoming more mature, more thoughtful, to grow as a character. And what I think the manga does so well, even better than the anime, is how unbelievably well it uses its framing to tell a story. It's one of those occasions that I find the manga to surpass the anime, that without music, without acting, without color, is able to elevate the experience even more, thanks to how Reiji Miyajima presents us the narrative by illustrating some of the most exquisite imagery I've ever seen in a manga. Not only making this world feel more alive by presenting the characters with different clothes and dresses, giving more insight into their personalities without any word being used, but also building up scenes to then deliver a beautifully detailed page that just pulls your heartstrings. Something that I had forgotten about. I had forgotten how this specific medium can be so intensely powerful, reminding me of the times I witnessed a heartfelt scene in Ranma and a Half, or an epic play illustrated in the most detailed way possible in Slam Dunk, or a protagonist that is able to convince someone else to join his crew in One Piece, or even the reason why I fell in love with the Promised Neverland in the first place. And you just look at it for the longest time wanting to be a part of that, in complete awe, wanting more of this. Maybe you're even listening to your own music, or you're just in utter silence. But regardless, you can't help but just appreciate all of the work put in. And Rent a Girlfriend is no different. How it is even able to dissect thoughts throughout a whole chapter to demonstrate what the character is going through in that point in time. That's right, a whole chapter, to not only build up that moment even more, but also making us connect with the insecurities that Kazuya might have. Because we never value ourselves as we should. We always think to be way less than we really are. In times where we want to believe that something good might happen to us, our mind decides to convince us of the opposite. It might seem so obvious to those watching this from afar, but I'm sure we've all been in a situation like Kazuya has and genuinely believed that we are just not worth it. Maybe it was yesterday. Maybe it was during our teen years. It could be tomorrow even. But it's happened. Because we're human. We are flawed. We do need to grow. We do need to find the right path in our lives. And we do want to find people that understand us and care for us. That are there when we need them the most. Whether that be family, a friend, or someone we love. Because I have a problem. I wish to be perfect. I wish I could do everything at the same time. I wish I could make everyone happy. But, as Rent a Girlfriend let me know, everyone survives by supporting each other. A perfect person doesn't exist. That's why when you lack something, you make up for it with the help of another person. It's like the manga knew what I needed to read. That these words held more weight because of what I was going through. Words that eventually led to one of the most brilliant chapters I've ever read in my life. How we see an entire moment unfold in front of our eyes, frame by frame, slowly showing us the beauty of someone exposing their emotions. And all we can do is just sit there, maybe even shedding a tear or two, almost as if we can't believe it ourselves. And it's there and then that you realize why you started reading this in the first place. Because it makes you feel human, that you can reveal your emotions, you can showcase them to the world, all thanks to these works of fiction. And all I can say is, I love this manga so much. It might have issues, it might have stereotypes that I genuinely disagree with, but I honestly don't care. Because despite all of that, there is absolute brilliance here, filled with so much passion and love by its creator, its art. And I can't wait for every Tuesday night to read the next chapter, to keep reminding myself that I am not the only one with these negative thoughts at times, that I am not the only one who has the problem of wanting to be perfect, that I am not the only one who eventually needs support, and that's absolutely okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's good. It's essential for all of us. It might not be what everyone wants it to be. It might not even be what I initially wanted it to be, but it became exactly what I needed it to be.